Okay, so today we'll be looking at we'll be starting the series of Python, and first thing first, we would like to give a brief background of what the programming language called Python is and what it's used for. Python is a high-level general-purpose programming language, and one of the pros of Python is that it emphasizes on code readability, and then uses simple English. So unlike other programming languages where you have some funny characters to define some certain things, Python uses indentation just like you'd write your paragraph in English. So Python is very useful regardless of the industry, of the sector of the industry where you find yourself. But one thing to note is that in as much as Python is used across multiple industries, one thing that differentiates it is, for example, there are libraries and frameworks and modules that you can use if you are in a different sector of the industry. So for example, people who are in data science would use a different framework or library. People who are in web will use a different library or framework, and people who are in, and so on and so forth like that. But one thing that unifies every Pythonista or everybody who writes Python at various capacity is that all of them start by writing the core Python. I mean, yes, that's the vanilla Python, because the library, the frameworks, or the modules you would be implementing at a later time is actually built upon the Python core itself. So that's why for every class or for everything you want to learn in Python, or for whatever department you're going into, the first thing you need to understand is the building blocks of Python programming language. And we're actually going to do the same. So in this exercise, we are going to be using Visual Studio Code, which is a lightweight IDE, integrated development environment, that it's compatible with almost all the programming languages. Yes, so we're going to use it because it's lightweight and it gives room for expansion. So there are a whole lot of extensions that you can install to suit your need. So we're going to be using VS Code, and I'm assuming that you've already installed Python from python.org, and then you should be having the latest version. In my own case, I'm running Python 3.112. That's the version I'm running. But as at the time of recording this video, we already have Python 3.13.x, which is any variant from 1 to 9. Alright, so without further ado, let's get started. The first thing we want to look at is how do you write Python programs. Now, unlike some other programming languages where you have to explicitly declare a variable name using a keyword, Python does not have that feature. So you declare variable name just as is, just give the name and then you give the value. So but before we go into that, let us look at what we can do with Python, and let's appreciate what Python can do for us. So now all the codes we are going to be writing so far is going to be executed on our console, and my console is right here. I can get my console by coming to terminal, and I can say new terminal, right? I can say new terminal, and you're going to get this. So we'll have two terminals here. I can close the two terminals and I can come to this and come to terminal, then I can say new terminal, and then we have terminal. So I can delete these terminals and let it be just one terminal that I have. So now I've created this file print.py, which is what we're going to be using to run the samples, and then every Python file ends with a .py extension. So whatever your file name is, so if it is a Python file, it must end with .py extension. Extension. So now that we have a print.py file, I'm just going to come here and say print, and I am printing whatever I want to print, hello world, just like that. I'm printing whatever I want to print, hello world, hello world, like that. Now when I do that, notice that if you are coming from the background of maybe JavaScript or any of those other programs or PHP, you probably want to end the line with this. Python does not value those, so it's not needed. So now to run this program, I'm just going to say py, I think the name of the file, print.py, and yeah, it's executed. So this is just like an instruction to print something to the console. It's just an instruction to print something to the console. And although as we progress, we would actually come to learn about terminal and command line interfaces, but for now we'll just give the instructions we want to give and let it be. Alright, so now, but going forward, if I do again print 9 times 5, this is going to give us 45. This is going to give us 45. But the challenge with this, so I can keep saying print file is ready, and then I keep doing something like this, and then we'll have hello world 45, file is ready. Now, but the challenge is when I write codes like this, I cannot reuse the entity that I've actually initialized, and so I cannot reuse 5 if 5 is to be assigned to something, and I cannot reuse 5 or 9 if they are to be assigned to anything. So in that regards, what I have to do is introduce the concept of variable. Introduce the concept of variable like this. The concept of variables is variables are basically like containers that contains data. So for example, I have a basket, and then a basket contains oranges, right, like this, oranges like this. So now for me to look for a piece of orange, I have to go inside a basket. So this is the concept of variables. Variables are containers that hold data that you can reuse. Now if this is correct, I can now say print basket like this, and when we run our code, we can see that basket is containing oranges. At that point, we reference the content of the variable by just calling the variables, right? Another instance is so now let's assume, and then we're now saying let's do more with the basket of, so we can say let's do something like length of basket, right, something like that. If we do something like this, and then we do print.py, you see it returns 7, so it has counted the number of elements inside the basket. So at this point, we can now begin to reuse, because tomorrow this basket can change from oranges to oranges and guavas. like this. And then if let's assume we are creating a duplicate of this, and this time around we are only printing what is inside basket, right? And then we run our code. Let me clear this. We run our code. You will see we have oranges and guavas. Okay, and you can do a whole lot of things with. So this is the concept of variable. It helps you hold data so that you can reuse the data anywhere within your code. Even if we get to line 375 and then we call basket is still going to return oranges to us. But again, there is another thing we want to look at, and I will say basket is purple, like this. Now at this point, if we run this code at this point, then you may want to guess what basket is going to be. Now what happens is this: basket originally is oranges and guavas, but then at line 7 basket is now containing purple. So when we now say print basket, it is good we think that it should print basket and basket, and then it doesn't know what basket is referring to. But one thing is this: your program runs from top to bottom, right? So your program actually executes line by line, line after a line, and line by line, and then it starts from the top and it runs to the bottom of the code. So what happens is that at line 6, the variable basket is containing the value or the data oranges and guavas. But then in line 7, basket has now changed its state to contain purple. So this is the state of basket that Python is seeing as at the point of printing len of basket and printing basket. Not that this is not valid, but this rewrite, right? This rewrite or override, sorry, this overwrite the content in the basket, in the previous content of the basket. So it is good we understand how these things work. But then this is just one leg of what variables can do for us. To fully understand what variables are and how we can use them in our subsequent program, let's look at some few things. The first one is, what are the rules for naming a variable? Now, the number one rule to name or naming a variable is that a variable cannot start with numbers. So something like one house, something like this, equals red, right? So this is a very terrible way of naming a variable, right? Because a variable name cannot begin with a number. So this is a red flag. And then let's see what Python is going to, how Python is going to react to it. And then let's say print pi, and you see we have an error. It's saying invalid decimal literal. So this means that this decimal is not in its right place. However, we can move this house, we can move this one to this place and say house 1, and Python is just going to be cool with that. Python wouldn't have any problem with that because there's no problem with it. Now the second thing here is that a variable name can never be one of Python's reserved keywords. So something like print, you cannot say print equals to red, because print in itself is a reserved keyword in Python. So let's look at how Python is going to react to this. And let's look at how Python is going to react. You see, string object is not callable, right? Because this, sorry. Okay, so let me get rid of this because it is reporting at the wrong place. Okay, so let's run this again. Let me get rid of this and run this again. Okay, so you see, but then it now becomes, now let's say we are now saying print, and let's say print, and it becomes a problem because we cannot call this, right? So you see, it becomes a problem because we cannot call this. It's saying that the string object is not callable because we are using a reserved keyword. And then let me try and change this so it doesn't look, so let's say 4, All right, and then let's say 4, which is a reserved keyword in Python, and then you see it's already throwing an error we can't use. So Python does not permit the use of its reserved keyword for variable names, so you shouldn't attempt to do that. Then the third rule that we must critically stick to is that a variable name shouldn't have a space between them. So let's say my game equals 4. This is not a valid way of naming a variable in Python, because Python is going to flag this as an error because my game, it has a space. So to solve this particular problem, because obviously there are times when you are writing, if it's not even in Python alone, there are some times when you are writing programs and there is need for you to use 2 distinct words as your variable name. Now there's something called cases in programming, which you can use to beautify the way you write your code. So the number one is the snake case, which is what I use most of the time. So I'm going to do something like my game equals 4. This is a valid way of writing a variable name, and I can say my game, this is called camel case, my game equals 9. This is also a valid way of writing. The most important thing is that there shouldn't be a white space between variable names. And I think that's pretty much it. Then another one you should know is that variable names are very case sensitive. So what that means is when I say game equals to 8 and I say and then I come here to say print game, yeah, you will see that this is going to throw an error because the game on line 12 is not defined. Even though we have game on line 9, game on line 12 is not defined because variable names are case sensitive. Small letter g is not the same as capital letter G, right? So it's very important that we bear all this in mind while writing our code. Now, that being said, I'm going to get rid of this. I would appreciate if there are questions, you can just drop them in the comment section and we can take it off from there. And then I'm going to clear my console here again. Okay, so now the whole idea or ideology behind programming is that you get data, you process the data, it gives you information. You just have raw data everywhere and you make sense from wrangling through the data, and you're getting information or details that can help you make informed decision about what your application is solving. So in Python there are multiple data types that we're going to use, but Python it's not explicitly calling for declaration of data type while you are creating it. But let's look at some common data types that we'll probably be looking at in this program. So the first one we want to look at is number. Okay, and number is divided into 2. We have the integers and we have the float. Alright, so what is integer and what is a float? An integer is a whole number. So for example, I'm going to say my num equals 8. So this is an integer, right? And if I say my float equals 5.3, this is a float. So let's just look at print. It's called type. This is a method in Python that returns the type of data that a variable is holding. So let's say print my type num, my num, and then the second one is print type my float, like this. So we're going to see how this plays out. So we have class of integer and class of float. So we have the integer and we have the float. So these are the two types of numbers we have in Python. Then I think we have the complex numbers. We have the complex numbers like this. And then a typical example, my complex equals 3y plus j, something like that, I guess. And then let's try and do this, my complex like this, and let's run this code again. And then you see it really doesn't care. Let me say 3j now. Okay, I guess this will work, something like this. Okay, so you see complex. Okay, so we have complex numbers. So these are the three types of number we have in Python. Then let's move on. Then there are other types. The second data type we have is string. And string is any form of data that we cannot explicitly run arithmetic operation on. Maybe alphabet, combination of numbers and alphabet, and so on and so forth, aside from the instances of something like a complex number. But if you look at a complex number, you see it does not understand what 3y is, right? It just went straight up with 3j's. I would create a more expansive video on that at a later time. So string, we have, for example, my string like this equals, is a single quote gamer, right? Gamer. Then we have another one, my string 1 equals a double quote games like this. And then my multi-line equals, and then we'll have triple quote, I lost to the blues. I lost to the blues. I might just try to do this multi-line. I lost to the blues, and then I do 1 2 3 again. All right. So these three things are actually valid string in Python. So let's take them one after the other again. So the first thing is I'm going to do my str, and then I'm going to do my str1. I'm going to do my str1, and then I'm going to do my multi-line. So let's clear this, and then let's run our code. You see, three of them are actually going to be string. So now it all depends on you, since this line 7 and line 8 are actually going to return the same thing. It is important that you choose what works best for you. But let me give you an instance where this line 8 tends to reign supreme over line 7. So now let's say I'm doing gamers like this. I want to do gamers now, which is a game. I'm pluralizing. Is that no? I'm actually adding apostrophe to get the s. So I'm trying to say gamers something, creating a room for attribute for it. Now, when you do something like this on a single quote, it throws an error, right? It throws an error. So let's say clear. It throws an error, and I'm doing Python 3. It's going to throw an error, because what is happening here is that we have actually terminated this the opening of this quote at this point. So it is saying, look, yeah, I don't understand what this s is doing here. So that's the problem. Now, but let's check it for the second one. But if you're doing something like a double quote, and I do something like this, I am good. I don't have any challenge here. I'm pretty much good. You see, it's no problem, right? And if I actually print, let me print this. If I actually print this without a type, if I actually print this, I am good also. There's no problem here on this code. You see, it's going to print out gamers, right? Okay, so I think I made a mistake. It should be gamers. But you understand what I'm trying to say. It's gamers, so it's absolutely going to print it. Now, and this is where many people will tell you it is good you just use double quotes and just save yourself the heartache. But if you are somebody like me who wants to always go extreme, then what this means is you're going to initiate an escape character here to do this job. So you're going to initiate an escape character here, and then let's print my string. This time around I'm just going to do print my string. So yep, I should have no problem here. And then I run a code, you're going to see gamers and gamers. Both of them are pretty much represented, because one is using an escape character, so it is trying to tell Python that look, that apostrophe just after this backward slash, it's not supposed to act like an apostrophe. It's supposed to act as a body of the content within the opening and the closing apostrophe. But in the double quote, we necessarily do not have to put the escape character, because we can embed a single quote in a double quote. So because of this limitation, a lot of people will just choose to use the instance of line 8. Then the multi-line, this is just a way we write a bit of documentation in Python. It helps us to tell Python to display whatever we have written just the way we have written them. It doesn't no records for anything. So let's do this. Let's print this line, and then let's do, oh sorry, I should have done that. Let's do print. We'll get rid of type instead. Oh god, multi-line, and then let's get rid of this type. We want to get rid of this type. Print multi-line, and let's clear this console and run Python again. You see, I lost to the blues. Now, in instances where you don't want to use this triple quote and you want to use double quote and you want to write it this way, so I probably will have to do something like gamers love new line to play new line barefooted, something like that, barefooted. Oh goodness. Right, so now what we are doing here is we're saying gamers love, move to the next line to create a new line, to play, create a new line, barefooted. And let's check my string 1. Let's clear console again here, and let's do print the pie. You see, gamers love to play barefooted. Okay, but then look at, there are spaces created, so just immediately after the new line, I'm not supposed to have a space, and I'm not supposed to have a space. So I just clear again, and then let's run Python once more, and then we have gamers love to play barefooted. Then I lost to the blue. So what this is doing is that regardless of whatever you've done, it just does this. So it's up to you to choose whatever pattern you want to use while creating your strings. Now, the next data type we want to look at is actually called let's look at lists. So list in Python is a collection, right? It's a collection that we can iterate through using its index. So now let's say cars. Cars, a list will come with this square braces. We have Mercedes, and then we'll have Volvo. Like I said, it's up to you to use single or double quote. And we'll have BMW, and we'll have Nissan like this. All right. So now let's say I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this, and then say print type of cars like this, and then I'm clear my screen here. I'm going to run this, and it tells us this is a list. All right, so we are going to list all the things we want to use, and because I said we can call this by its index, so I'm just going to do something like cars, and I'm going to say 1. because it uses 0 index, it is going to start counting from 0 and 1. So this is only going to return to me the value on the location number 1, which is Volvo. So, but more on this at a later time. Why I'm showing you this at this time is just so you know that what we call index, right? And then we also have list method, and we can use a whole lot of things to manipulate a list in Python. Then moving forward, we have set. Yes, we have set. Set is also a data type in Python, and let's call it hobbies. Hobbies equals this. This is going to convert it to a text. Let's say traveling. I'm just going to say traveling, dancing, and we're going to do movies like this. So first, let's look at the type of this. Let's look at the type of this data. So we're going to say print type of hobbies, and then let's clear console and print. Oh, sorry, this is a tuple. This is a tuple, not a set. A set should be this. A set should be this. All right. So let's go again. So this is going to be a set. Yeah. So sorry I missed that. So this is a set now, and then let's move on to another one. Like I said, because our program runs from top to bottom, so I can reuse this variable name. So let me reuse this. Let me reuse this, and this time around I'm going to call this a tuple like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to the parenthesis. I'm going to change this to a parenthesis, and then we are printing type of hobbies again, so it shouldn't cause too much of a problem. It's just going to override what we had originally. So this is a tuple. Then the next one is called dictionary. So dictionary is the one that is a little bit different. So let's first create the name dictionary, and we're going to call it users. All right, so we have a dictionary. Dictionary is a key value pair, right? So it has a key and it has a value. So we're going to do it like this. So we have username, right? And the username is Hillary, like this. We'll have age, and age is 45, and we have gender, and gender is male. Male, like that. So, and we are going to change this to users like this, and then I'm going to clear this. I'm going to print. Sorry, this is supposed to be a string. It's supposed to be a string, because if it is not a string, it will be referencing a variable that is not defined. So that is why this should be string. All right, so let's run this again like this. So you see it's a dictionary. So these are the data types that exist within Python. I don't know if I skipped anyone, but as time goes on, we are going to get used to them. So these are all the data types that we can use in Python, and pretty much we have actually talked about each of them independently. So we have number, and number we have integer, float, and complex. We have string, we have list, we have set, we have tuple, we have dictionary. I think that's all we want to. Yeah, I think I've actually mentioned what. Yeah, then we have bool. Yeah, we have boolean. Yep. Let's I forgot that. So we have boolean. So we have the bool, written in full boolean. So a boolean is a data type that has one of two states. So any variable that contains one of two states, which is either yes or no, 1 or 0, true or false, something like that, is actually a boolean. All right. So for example, I do something like matured. I do something like matured, and I'm saying true, like this. So what this implies is that this person is matured. So if it is false, that means the person is not matured. It's either mature or not matured. Alright, so but then let's look at what is the type of matured. Alright, and then let's print to console again. Let's print to console again. It's a bool, right? Then so these are the data types that we can explore in Python. Chances are that there are some programs you will write, you will use all this data type, and there are some you will write, you will just use maybe a few of them, but it is important you know how each of them works. Now in the next video I'm going to be sharing, we will be looking at other things that we can combine to make our program more intuitive, so to say. Alright, so you can drop your questions in the comment section, and I would be very glad to attend to your questions.